how do you think, what kind of metrics are crucial for effective merchandising? Could you please explain the key metrics from your experience?
Yeah, sure. I guess first, let me give you my definition of merchandising. I think most simply said, merchandising is a fusing of planning and design. It's certainly not pure number crunching. It's certainly not pure design. It is informed design. It's design with consideration for both great storytelling, um, but also profitability. So I think it's really important to understand that merchandising is not just, going into the store and making it look nice. It's the statistical analysis of past performance and what that would suggest for the future. But it's also from a pure design and creativity point of view, what the designers see as forward trends. Never mind the historical, because trends come and go. And it becomes the judgment of the design team about what trends are diminishing and what trends are incoming. And historical numbers won't tell you that. But so there ends up having to be a fusion of both the planning and the design process. And that's not so much about specific metrics as understanding just what level of teamwork is involved to be able to make that happen. Um, but then to jump into metrics, um, I immediately go to, well, I'll use your term, clusters, and the establishment of clusters of product that reflect levels of risk or levels of fashion, so that you start with basics and then key items and then fashion and then trend. And breaking apparel content down into those four levels and treating each of those levels separately in terms of just how much breadth and how much depth they'll each get. And then, of course, the further refinement of that is north and south. And the further refinement of that is ABC stores. So and the management of all that is what creates the scorecard that I was talking about earlier. So it's building this conglomeration, if you will, of clusters, and how that the clusters get populated that formulate the merchandising process.
Mhm. But in terms of the key performance indicators, despite the fact we are managing the clusters, when we are dealing with four different level of risks by your definition, and for example, different levels of clusters in terms of stores, which creates the metrics for some amount of clusters depending on the risk and stores. But at the same time, what kind of KPIs, what kind of metrics for efficiency will give the top managers, commercial directors, the understanding whether they are going forward in towards to their aims or not?
Well, I think the key specific metric then is weekly sell through, because each of the four clusters of risk is probably going to have a different expected rate of sell through. Basics will sell through slower than key items. They're going to sell through slower than fashion or trend. So you plan fashion and trend flow based on the fact that you have an expectation of anywhere between, I would say, 8 to 12 to 15% a week sell through, as opposed to basics and key items, which might only have 4 to 6%
Mhm.
per week sell through. So understanding that each of the clusters has very different expectations for sell-through rates is part of what drives it. They also are going to have very different expected rates of maintained margin. Basics sell a lot slower, but they don't have any clearance markdowns. So they're going to have a higher maintained margin rate. Fashion and trend sell through at a much higher rate, but they also have a much higher markdown rate. So as a group, fashion and trend are probably going to have a lower maintained margin. And it's being able to establish the different metrics for the different clusters that will drive the in-season management of how slow selling product is dealt with. For instance, if you have something in the fashion and trend area that's only selling through at 2% a week, you got to mark it down now. You
Yeah.
can't wait until the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got a basic selling through at 8 to 10% a week, you've got to increase production now because you weren't planning on that level of sell-through rate.
Yes.
So it's really understanding how different the metrics can be by cluster level that brings focus to the whole process.